69 days to go before the end of January. There's still one more Wednesday.
But as promised yesterday, we said we'll start counting down the days once we know
probably
the normal.
From tomorrow, because there won't be any other Thursday, we'll start the countdown to the end of January.
And then from there, I'll start the countdown for Valentine's.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. At this rate, we could start one for Christmas this early.
You have to.
My name is Fred Indimuli. How hot is the coffee where you are?
And I'm yours truly, Stanley Nyaringita. Welcome. It's a wonderful Wednesday. This particular morning, we have a whole jam-packed session for you. We'll be getting into some piki ponki and also some karate.
Yeah, I tell you. Before all that, we'll be discussing matters education in the country, the state of education, today being the International Day of Education. Do stand by for that conversation. There's been a lot of shambles and confusion in Kenya's education sector. That we'll be looking at with the experts.
Oh, yes. But before that, and before you even get into the dailies this particular morning, let's take a look at the weather right about now. It's about 17 degrees Celsius at the moment, expecting to decrease a little bit as we get into the 7 a.m. hour, but then it promises to be a little hotter as the day goes on. Let's take a look at the traffic this particular morning. And, well, the roads are looking clear this particular morning. This is, as you can see, Thika Road looking quite clear. Let's see how Mombasa Road is looking like as it is there. And then that particular southern bypass as it is. And Ngong Road as well, looking spick and span. We'll be taking a look at these particular roads later on. Let's take a look at the dailies and the highlights.
A quick look at the headlines this morning. Which paper do we have so far? Yes, Ruto's warning shot to restless Mount Kenya leaders. That's the Standard. Matters politics. On Taifa Leo, Asukuma Sadaka itozwe ushuru. Wow, interesting.
On to the next one, Daily Nation. Secrets of Ruto Mudavadi deal. I love the fact that they've had the white and black
black
effect.
And white effect, yeah.
Yes.
And on the People Daily, how lenders are robbing hustlers. Wow, are you part of the victims? Do we have one more? Finally, on the Star, Raila succession, Joho Oparanya access emerge. Those are the dailies, and we'll be looking at that in a lot more detail later on. Let's take a look at the highlights now.
And first off, TSC agrees to redeploy teachers to St. Gabriel Isongo Secondary School, Kakamega County, after area MPs apologized for last week's attack on teachers over poor exam results.
Thousands of businesses suffer interruptions after Safaricom's pay bill service reported temporary disruption for the better part of Tuesday.
And in matters sports, Cameroon through to the last 16 of the Africa Cup of Nations after beating the Gambia with the host nation Ivory Coast on the brink of a shocking group stage exit after 4-0 thrashing. I think I should repeat that again for Fred. Thrashing by Equatorial Guinea.
There's still a chance.
Right now, the only team that you can cling on is Arsenal.
And
Arsenal is
let's not even deal with Arsenal, because you see even... What's your goalkeeper's name?
Onana.
Yes, he was benched for his national team's assignment yesterday for that team to win or to even survive. So let's not talk matters EPL. Let's look at the day's diary.
Oh, yes. And on today's diary, President William Ruto is expected to still be in Nakuru, specifically in Gilgil. He was there yesterday for a couple of events. We'll be taking a look at that as well. Azimio leader Raila Odinga will be in Kilifi today, continuing with his week's coastal tour region, again drumming up support for the ODM party. As you had mentioned earlier today is the International Education Day. And I believe we'll be getting more on this from the panelists this particular morning. And, well, away from that, on today's diary, just getting the clear records here. Right, do have it here. So away from matters education, Mudavadi, Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs of Kenya, Musalia Mudavadi, expected to visit China from today all the way to the 26th. This is according to the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin. And well, if you're an artist, today might be your lucky day. Check your M-Pesa because the Music Copyright Society Kenya is expected to pay artists 1,250 Kenyan shillings in royalties for 2023 today. So according to the MCSK's Chief Executive Ezekiel Mutua, the payment was supposed to happen last year during the Jamhuri Day celebrations. But away from that, looking at the Continental Diary as well, today is World Day for African and Afro-descendant culture. So it is held every year on such a day, and it celebrates the many vibrant cultures of the African continent and African diasporas around the world, reinforcing UNESCO's mandate to promote respect for cultural diversity and human creativity around the globe. In today in history, back in 1989, confessed serial killer Theodore Bundy was executed in Florida's electric chair. If you've taken a look at that documentary by Bundy, you can see how much of a big deal he was in the US. And in 1995, back in Africa, South Africa President Nelson Mandela arrives in India to sign cooperation and other agreements to restore bilateral ties. That is the news diary as well as the Today in History. Remember, we'll be updating this particular diary as well as the county diary at the tail end of the show. Right now though, ile bumper yetu ya news papers.
All right, and on the dailies, we kick off with the Standard. Ruto's warning shot to restless Mount Kenya leaders. Stop it or else. President Ruto has been sucked into the raging squabbles among his lieutenants in central Kenya, warning restless youthful leaders led by MP Ndindi Nyoro, who are seeking to upstage Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua in Mount Kenya supremacy battle. That story is on page 6, and a photo there of the president with some of the leaders from that region. On his right, his deputy Rigathi Gachagua, and on the left, Ndindi Nyoro is being touted as a possible successor for the position of deputy president. Other stories given prominence on the front page of the Standard. Supreme Court makes good ban order on lawyer. The Apex Court declines to accord senior counsel Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi audience when he made efforts to appear before it of a 2 billion shilling land case. And this guy is very interesting. You've been banned by the Supreme Court, then you just go ahead and show up. You know, now the Supreme Court judges recused themselves from that case. They said, okay, fine, we shall no longer hear that case. Interesting. Matters education, all 17 Isongo school teachers to return. The TSC, who's the employer, has rescinded its decision to transfer the tutors after meeting stakeholders of troubled secondary school at its Nairobi offices yesterday. Basically, MP Salasia and other MPs from the region went and said pole to TSC. Hatutarudia tena. On the enterprise pullout, why artificial intelligence is a future for enterprises. If you're not using AI, you better read that story. On the top strip of the Standard, Junet question, Raila jumps to the defense of ally. Elsewhere, fuel prices, IMF's new bitter pill. Okay. Now some of these headlines, you read them and unaweza shikwa na ile ya moyo. Na sio moyo mkunjufu ile ingine.
Apart from heart attack.
Okay, moving on. On the international front, Israel's Gaza war threat to Mideast. And AFCON, night of drama as giants clash. Stories on page 31 and 32. Okay, fine, we do agree that with the newspapers, it's always day two reporting. So I'll give you some of the lowdown. Yesterday, Cameroon qualified by beating Gambia 2-0. Yes, that means they are through. Meanwhile, Senegal, of course, maintained their stellar performance, beating Guinea 2-0, meaning that Senegal is, I think, the best performer so far.
They have 9 points so far.
They've won all their 3 games. No other team has managed that at the AFCON. Meanwhile, the hosts, Ivory Coast,
and your team
lost 4-0 to Equatorial Guinea. Meaning they're still not out, but they're on the brink of losing out. Now their survival depends on the performance of other teams today. Yes, so today will determine a lot for Ivory Coast, the hosts. But you can imagine for the hosts to leave so early, and we were talking about this yesterday.
Oh yes.
So yes, that's the standard. Just giving you an explanation on what they're talking about AFCON here, and just some more details.
Oh yes, and well, real quick, even on the standard, there's a whole story on page 7 of Mackenzie. I believe it should also have reflected on the front page, saying Mackenzie and co-accused deny 238 charges. Right, let's take a look at the Daily Nation, that black and white photo effect of Prime CS Musalia Mudavadi as well as President William Ruto. They say these are the secrets of Ruto, Mudavadi and Mudavadi deal. The earthquake, remember those days, 2 years later. So more than 1 year to the 2022 general election, Musalia Mudavadi was a leading light of the One Kenya Alliance that included Kalonzo Musyoka and Gideon Moi. And beknown to his allies, including Raila Odinga to the opposition Azimio, he was already secretly eyeing a deal with William Ruto. On the 6th of April 2021, he quietly reserved the name Kenya Kwanza Alliance, the outfit that is today the governing coalition. Right, interesting. They have that lowdown for you on pages 4 and 5. On the right strip, matters business, rather matters financial, as well as matters parenting. They say Kenya bans 2 trillion Kenyan shillings 4 years in advance. They have a graph there. There's a pointer to how the country's living was way beyond its means. A parliamentary report shows, for the first time, the consolidated fund service expenditure payments for public debt, pension and salaries of constitutional office holders have exceeded the 2 trillion mark, a situation that was not expected until 2026-2027 financial year. Wow, on the back page, they have that for you. Matters parenting, why we choose to hire day bags instead of live-in nannies. Ule wakukuja leo, ameenda kesho, siku ingine mwingine. And the very top scroll, petition why churches should pay taxes on tithe. On page 3, matters business, World Bank gives Kisumu a 1.4 billion Kenyan shillings facelift. And into the courts, Supreme acts casualties of Ahmed Nasir's court ban on page 10. Other highlights focused on the back page, apart from the whole spending on debt. At the bottom, doctors ask taxmen to exempt them from electronic tax invoice requirements. And that is the Daily Nation for you this morning.
Tuangazie gazeti la Taifa Leo na habari kuu pale ni kuhusu mjadala wa ulipaji ushuru. Asukuma sadaka itozwe ushuru. Na sasa huenda makanisa nchini yakaanza kutoza ushuru wa mapato kwa pesa yanayokusanya kama sadaka na fungu la 10 iwapo mahakama kuu itakubaliana na daktari mmoja wa Nakuru anayedai kutoyatoza ushuru ni kukiuka katiba. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 2 wa Taifa Leo. Daktari ya kokotini akisema kila Mkenya anapaswa kulipa ushuru bila kujali sekta anayohudumu. Mjadala pale. Habari zingine kwenye ukurasa wa mbele pale chini, Gachagua aapa kumaliza vileo haramu. Kwingineko, Raila atetea Junet dhidi ya shutuma. Kwenye upande wa kulia kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, vidokezo zaidi, watetezi wapinga vikali Biden. Wadai hafai kuwania urais kulingana na jinsi anavyoshughulikia zogo la Israel na Hamas. Kwingineko, familia Garissa zataka kuzidi katika kambi. Maeneo ya makazi yaliyoathirika bado yanagubikwa na mafuriko kulingana na mkazi. Habari zaidi na ni masuala ya spoti pale juu. Nigeria juu, wenyeji wakijikwaa mechi za kundi A michuano ya AFCON hatimaye za kamilika. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 20 wa Taifa Leo. Masuala ya AFCON kule hali si hali.
Inanikumbusha today is Tanzania, might be Tanzania's last game. They're playing today, so probably I think for this weekend, in case they're going to be, they're not going to be progressing into the round of 16.
A lot depends, because if you look at Tanzania's group, I think there's still a chance if they manage to win their last game, and
which is DRC.
Yes, to beat DRC, and I think someone else beats the other team. It will be interesting. Chances are slim, but you never know. This is football. Let's wait for the end of today. I'm not certain, but let's wait for the end of today. If Ivory Coast still stands a chance to succeed, well, Tanzania is at the bottom of the group.
Yes.
So,
but all in all, we prepare ourselves to karibisha back Tanzania.
After today, enough teams will be heading home.
And on the People Daily, how lenders are robbing hustlers. They say loans of agony. Riders have been pushed to die by suicide, marriages, and broken children, orphaned and family property violently taken away by entities exploiting the vulnerabilities of the unemployed to make huge profits through exorbitant charges and hidden claims. They have that on page 4. And a photo of rowdy boda operators. There's a quote there by Dr. Nyandemo. He said it is not a fair deal. They should know that they are paying double for the commodity and must be informed to form circles to get these products using collateral. And at the very top scroll, matters NHIF, why state agencies are shifting health insurance to private companies. At the very bottom scroll are the highlights focused on this paper. Supreme Court judges decline to hear Moi case of Ahmed Nasir. More page 7. Justices make good their order banning top lawyer who they accuse of disparaging them. And finally, party politics. Nobody wants Junet out of ODM, says Raila on page 2. We'll be back to take a look at People Daily on page 10 of their cartoons this morning, but on to the next.
Let's take a look at the Business Daily.
Business Daily,
The big headline, payslip deductions for top earners rise by 430,000 shillings. Wow. You can imagine that. Executives to bear brunt of higher taxes and levies. Lack of caps on SHIF housing levy amplifies heat. You know, with the SHIF and the housing levy, they don't put a cap and say no more deductions beyond 5,000 bob, which they've been traditionally doing. So they just put the percentage. So if it's 2.75% for the SHIF deduction, it is that percentage of your gross pay, whether you earn 1 million bob or 5 million shillings or 20 bob. Interesting. So there's someone who's actually paying 430,000 shillings in taxes alone as payee and the consolidated deductions of the payslip. That's a big headline on the front page of the Business Daily. The other big story there, Kenyan exports to Uganda cross 100 billion shillings on weak shilling. So the value of this probably a year ago would have been about 70 billion or less. Now it's about 100 billion shillings. Because the Kenyan shilling has really lost out to other currencies, even in the region. On the ticker on the front page of the Business Daily, Nairobi in tight spot as EAC European trade deals clash. And you remember that deal that Kenya signed with the EU sometime late last year.
Yeah, late last year, leaving out.
Yes, and left out the rest of our neighbors, and now that deal and the EAC deals are clashing. Elsewhere, mobile agency banking cuts ATMs to 11-year low. When was the last time you used an ATM?
It's been quite a while though.
Probably if you want to withdraw money from your mobile money and you need cash, probably. Yes. It rarely happens. Well, that's a Business Daily today. Let's take a look at the Star.
The Star has about 5 stories, but then they focus on matters politics being the top lead. They say Raila succession, Joho Oparanya axis emerge, and pictured there photos of top leaders in the Azimio, John Mbadi, Edwin Sifuna, Wycliffe Oparanya, Hassan Joho, as well as Junet Mohammed and Ledama Lekina. there, saying ex-PM celebrated 79th birthday this month. There are doubts about his 6th stab at presidency on pages 4 and 5. At the bottom scroll, Busia woman representative declares war on jiggers. And other highlights there, it's an insult to Kenyans. Ruto speaks on Mount Kenya 2027 succession politics. And matters gender disparity, 127 state agencies on spot for failing 2/3 test. But then a very interesting story at the very top scroll. They call it occultism. Could devil worship be behind Winnie's brutal murder? Bringing a whole new twist to this conversation. And we have that on page 20. Could devil worship be behind Winnie's brutal murder?
It's a valid question indeed, given the kind of gruesome decapitation of the body. And you wonder, was it really necessary? It's one thing killing someone. Is it necessary to go ahead and cut off, pull out the nails and other things that really leave a lot of questions, begging answers? I think that's our cue to cross the border.
Oh, yes.
And we cross through the Busia border into Uganda. Kampala. And there on the Daily Monitor this morning, Uganda picks Dubai farm to build refinery. Alpha MBM Investments LLC, led by a member of the United Arab Emirates royal family, will finance and construct the proposed 16 trillion shilling oil refinery in Buseruka sub-county in Hoima district. That story is on page 5, but don't get scared. That 16 trillion we're talking about is Uganda money, is not Kenya shillings. It's Ugandan money. They have a photo there of, I think, someone inspecting some food
stuff,
drinks products. They say that they suspected fake food drinks which have flooded the market. How would it be fake food? Okay, maybe counterfeit.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a big headline there. Well, that's a Daily Monitor. Let's take a look at, we have another paper from Uganda, and that's the New Vision.
Yes.
On the New Vision, same headline, UAE to build refinery in April, and Uganda to earn 15.2 trillion shilling in investment. Stories on page 6. I think it's a big deal, this refinery. And this is according to the New Vision. It's also the big headline on the Daily Monitor. Big news in Uganda, the oil refinery. And probably it speaks to Kenya's relationship with Uganda. We have a dispute on importation of oil. Now they're building a new refinery in Uganda. That could say something. Are there oil deposits there? You know, even in northern Kenya we have some oil deposits. What did it mean even for Kenya? If at all it could exploit the oil deposits, Uganda might actually be closer to that area.
Right, let's take a bus from Kampala and go all the way to Rwanda before coming back to Tanzania and take a look at the New Times and take a closer look at Kigali's new mental health center. That's the big story on the New Times. In Rwanda, they say hospital aims to address mental health stigma through the quality of its services. More lowdown is on page 4. But another interesting story is on this, we shall defend Rwanda at all costs. That is according to Rwanda's President Paul Kagame. I think he was talking about this yesterday.
Yeah. I want to take you back to the headline, to the main headline, and close a look at Kigali's new mental health center. And if you look at the headline on yesterday's edition of New Times, they were talking about artificial intelligence.
Yeah, AI.
You see the kind of trajectory that Rwanda has taken. Very progressive headlines. Yesterday they were talking about artificial intelligence on the front page. Today they're talking about matters mental health, not politics.
Oh yes, by the way.
Or other issues like we do in Kenya. Interesting. That's Rwanda.
Well, I mean, but then again, it speaks volumes on people there. If you're going to really be talking about politics, he's a boss, so...
I think is ensured. I don't want politics on the front pages. Let's talk about development and progression. So AI, mental health issues, you rarely see those things on the front pages. We are so much used to, what Gachagua said and what people are saying, who's succeeding who, when, where.
Yes, and why did you not say that? But then even, and actually speaking about matters development, they have NST1, how has Rwanda fared in achieving the 7-year plan? Government to support farmers in flooded arable wetlands. That is what they have really. And also taking a look at an op-ed, Rwanda 2024. Here are the tired storylines you should expect. That is on page 6. I was taking a look at the New Times. They don't really have a cartoon. It's an 18-page, it's a small paper.
Probably less room for opinion and innuendos, because that would mean something else as well. Let's move on now. Closer home, kule Bongo, across the border in Tanzania. Tuangazie gazeti la Mwananchi. Habari kuu, maandamano kwa masharti. Baada ya msuguano mkali wa siku kadhaa, jeshi la polisi la ruhusu rasmi maandamano ya amani ya Chadema, huku ikitoa onyo kali. Mboya apongeza ukomavu wa dawa, akisema ni hatua mpya kisiasa na kidemokrasia. Wakumbushia Aquilina. Wamekubaliwa kule kuandamana, chama cha upinzani Chadema Tanzania. So masuala ya siasa pale pia. Now you see in Uganda they're talking about building an oil refinery. In Rwanda they're talking about mental health center, artificial intelligence. But when you come to Tanzania and Kenya, it's always politics.
Politics.
Hilo ndo gazeti la Mwananchi. Kuna habari nyingi zaidi. Ukurasa wa mbele, it's a very crowded space, but tumeangazia tu habari kuu pale.
Well, Tanzania also has a daily news, but then it is on Matters Sports. They're saying do or die for Taifa Stars. Just a reminder also that, Taifa Stars will be playing today against DRC. It's time to see other papers from Tanzania. They do have daily news as well. They say TZ, China eye new pacts. And government stresses tax compliance to finance budgets, just among papers from Tanzania.
We also do have the Citizen, still from Tanzania. And the plight of girls trafficked, abused in mining towns. There's a special report revealing how young girls, including from neighboring countries, are lured into mining towns in Tanzania, where they end up being trapped in poverty and sexual slavery. And a photo there of some of those women working in mines, and very thirsty-looking men just looking at them. The other big headlines on the front page of the Citizen: DRC Turkish farm in dispute over SGR equipment. More DOG $300 million reacher as tycoons in Africa see better times. And Chadema set for Dar demonstrations, but, and I highlight finally, as we always said, Tanzania rarely puts their national team on the front page, despite the fact that they are at African, at AFCON, and today at least they're there. But you see, so they say it is do or die for the Stars as they face DR Congo.
But you see, today for them it's a big deal, because this might again, as I'm saying, might be the last game.
If they beat DR Congo, they stand a chance.
Yes.
A slight chance. If not,
but looking at the trends,
karibuni nyumbani ndugu zetu.
But tutarudi wakituambia sisi tulikuwa huko.
At least they're there. At least they're there. We're watching from.
Nyinyi mlikuwa wapi?
Tunawasoma kwa gazeti.
Turejea nchini Kenya, bus from Bongo back to Kenya, and take a look at the cartoons this morning on our caricature on page 12 of the Standard, page 17 of the Daily Nation, and page 10 kama kawaida of the People Daily.
All right, and we start off with the Daily Nation. And the cartoon on page 17 talks about matters, Mount Kenya succession politics. We have that crown and two gentlemen struggling to fit their heads into one singular crown and one throne there. And I can tell who these people are: the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and MP for Kiharu Ndindi Nyoro.
And the gentleman running away? might be
a cabinet secretary that I know of, very loud cabinet secretary, who's saying, who told you you're fighting for that? Or there are others who could be interested,
and this
not just the two of you.
And this reminds me, I think it was Daily Nation's paper, either Daily Nation or The Standard. They had now the photo, the caricature of Rigathi Gachagua climbing the Mount Kenya, but then now blaming, Ndindi Nyoro, why did you make this mountain slippery, even as he was chasing the crown. So it seems like he's finally gotten the crown, but hard to share with.
They're struggling to share.
Yes.
I think it's just that bickering and push and pull. Who's supposed to do it? Okay, fine, it's our time now. When we come to 2027, who should be on that ticket alongside President Ruto?
Let's take a look at page 12 of the Standard. They're going with the arms of the government, the three arms of the government, the judiciary, executive impasse, have that whole balance. On the left, judiciary, the other hand, executive and legislature, a bag of money there. And executive legislature seem to be eluding the judiciary there.
I like that kind of the clever use of that justice balance, the weighing scale.
Yes.
And it would appear that between the three arms of government, two of them are on one side, therefore tilting the scale against the judiciary on matters justice. And that's the irony of it, that the judiciary, when it comes to justice, the judiciary does not weigh
as
equal to the other two arms of government. So that's a cartoon on the
speaks on the whole independence of it. Let's take a look at page 10. Maneno ya stima. Unasema Kenya hakuna mataa instead of hakuna matata. There's a gentleman there saying, despite delays, Kenya forges forward with electric transport system. There's a whole electric car there. They're trying to tap it there. And I think yesterday there's a whole conversation on the whole the poor uptake of the I think the e-bike there. And we do remember last year even the president really trying to push for the electric vehicles and the whole electric vehicle, the whole electric mobility really.
And questions have been asked about Kenya's electricity supply. We've seen last year alone, there were about 4 or 5 major nationwide blackouts. And you can just imagine if at all you're driving one of those electric vehicles and then you're just about to recharge your car and then everything goes dark.
Boom.
What happens?
You really have to survive up, because I mean the whole conversation that was there last year was having now more of this, charging stations from different parts. Because
it's technology and we cannot ignore it. It will definitely happen. It will definitely come our way. I think the best way is just to ensure that our electricity supply is improved.
So again, this is the year that we see if Rwanda and other countries talk about the whole AI. This should be our year to actually now really, charge on this particular conversation.
All right.
And that is the dailies for you this particular morning. Just a reminder also, that particular conversation on matters self-defense comes at a time when we're having some of these mysterious matters. So this might also be a chance to learn how to do the whole self-defense.
I can see they call it Mantis Kenpo Karate.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Yes.
Mantis.
So for the basics of self-defense.
Okay.
Someone touches you, how do you really defend yourself? And not only even for the young girls, even for the young people out here.
Okay.
How do you really defend yourself when you find yourself in a very compromising situation? That is coming your way at around 8:30 there, but before that, matters education.
Yes, matters education. There's another conversation later on, Piki Piki Ponki Paka Mielo Disco. That interesting lawyer, Willis Otieno, spoke to Gashambi Derito. We'll be having that. But right after the break, matters education. The state of education in Kenya, today being International Day of Education. We'll be having education researcher Peter Munga, education policy analyst Brenda Akinyi, and the Secretary General Kupet Akelo Misori for this conversation. What exactly is happening to the education sector with all the confusion and shambles that bedevil that sector? That after the break, and you can be part of that conversation on our social media pages that you can see across the screen. Do be part of this. You're watching Morning Cafe. which has snowballed in recent years with the use of social media damaging the fabric of our societies. In Kenya, the situation is similar, with the teachers especially facing different kind of challenges, and schools as well facing their own set of challenges. This morning we're privileged to have in studio Brenda Akinyi, Education Policy Analyst. It's good to have you in studio. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
We are hoping to be joined by two other panelists, and we'll introduce them as soon as they join us in studio. But Brenda, from a policy perspective, even as we look at the education sector wholesomely, what are some of the key challenges, especially in as far as policy is concerned, that you could say require attention and strategic interventions, even as we just look at it wholesomely before we delve into particular challenges?
Yeah, first and foremost, I actually want to acknowledge the fact that education is a fundamental key aspect in our lives. And much thanks to UN for coming up with such a day for us to acknowledge the role education has played in our lives, and basically the lives of the children that we handle, the society at large. So you find that I mean, most of us are products of education, and we really appreciate that. So I want to take this opportunity to thank the UN, UNESCO, for coming up with this day for us to celebrate International Day of Education. And I also want to acknowledge the fact that education has made a milestone, especially as far as Kenya is concerned. We've really grown positively, and we are geared towards making comprehensive changes in the lives of a Kenyan child. But as far as we want to talk about some of the challenges that stakeholders in education are facing, it becomes a broader perspective, because it has faced so many challenges with the emergence of social media, emergence of technology, and things are moving quite fast. So you find that with the generational change, the transition becomes a huge challenge. There are those of us who were born probably in the era of technology. We have the traditionalists who were born in the era that we were just trying to transit ourselves into the lives of exposure to technology. So here we are trying to incorporate all these differences in generational milestones as well, and try to see how can we be able to impact a child's life in as much as social media and technology is also giving us a run for our own money. Yes.
Do you get the feeling that we are always playing catch up, especially when it comes to education? And now that you mentioned technology, that technology, as you say, is moving too fast, and we are not able to keep up. So we are always behind, trying to probably legislate, build a legal framework around how to handle some of this, especially with the new curriculum. Yeah.
So, I mean, with the new curriculum, for instance, the CBC, it's actually one of the biggest milestones Kenya has made, because it's one of the fundamental policies as far as CBC is concerned is the use of technology, inclusion of literacy, for instance, as far as technology is concerned. So when you mention trying to catch up, it's true that some of us, for instance, some of our teachers or education stakeholders have been in probably in the 844 and the other systems, and they've seen the changes as far as technology is concerned. So it is quite true, it's a fact that we are trying to keep up with the emergence of new things as far as technology is concerned. And it's upon each and every stakeholder of education to retool himself or herself to see to it that we keep up with the pace. Yes.
And as far as social media is concerned, because it is something that we are also learning to live with, the way things are looking, there's no going back. Social media is here to stay. Yet there's so many negative aspects of social media. Our children and most learners depend on some of these channels to learn, to do their research, and to even interact with even their teachers and their colleagues. But when it comes to policy, in as far as regulating the conduct of social media and those who engage in that space, we seem to be lacking. From a policy analyst perspective, where's the gap?
Regulating, or rather taking note of the fact that somehow it boils down to individuals, to be able to see to it that the policies that have been installed are actually implemented. The only issue is at the actualization stage. So it's so hard typically or realistically to try and manage, for instance, a child who is coming from a family that is technologically upright. So, but again, we have channels, educational channels, that really try to instill skills that are educational. So as far as policy is concerned, implementation stage and review is actually going on. It's an ongoing process, and it's one very interesting, thing to look into, because yes, there are policies that have been put in place to be able to regulate what children, for instance, watch, what sort of information or knowledge is out there for them to consume. So like I said, the actualization stage is where the problem is, because for instance, a teacher in a particular school might really want a child to go and do a research on a particular topic, but he or she cannot go beyond the classroom confinement and really try to check what this child is doing in his or her, social media handles. So it's upon the parents, the caregivers, to try and up their game, and see to it that their children, yes.
But leaving it to individual parents, because I've met parents who say my child cannot own or even use a mobile phone, for example. Yet other parents are more receptive. Most of us come from a generation where the mobile phone was not present when we were born. Now each child who's born in this day and age gets to interact with some of these gadgets. Where do we strike the balance? Because technology is here with us. It is one of the channels that even learners use to access the curriculum and other learning material. Yet parents, some parents still feel reluctant because of their own experiences with technology. Is there a way that policies can help to determine probably how early or how soon is too soon for a child to interact with some of this technology?
Definitely, because parents have to come into an agreement that we have a generational shift, and it's upon every parent to accept the inclusion of technology in learning. So if you want to be too traditional and deny your child the access of maybe technology, a mobile phone, for instance, then it means that your child is missing out somewhere. But again, what I'm saying is, we need to create, the policies are meant to create awareness, to be able to educate the adults or the caregivers or parents on the rightful ways to be able to, allow their children to access technological devices. Because for CBC, the children are supposed to delve into technology as early as grade 1, for instance. So if a teacher has given some particular homework, maybe in ICT or ICT-related issues. So why would you deprive your child the ability to be able to access technology under your watch?
Okay.
Yes.
And allow me to introduce and welcome Peter Munga, an education researcher, onto the panel. Munga is a familiar face on this panel. Karibu sana. It's good to have you back at T47. Today is International Day of Education, and Brenda and I were just trying to probably just examine the role of policy and what policy gaps exist in trying to manage our education system here in Kenya. And we just got into the point of education, of technology in education. That's why you caught this conversation. And I want to still pursue that issue of education and technology. With the CBC, for example, and internet penetration not really being 100% across Kenya. Issues to do with technology, access to internet and others, could be creating an imbalance between learners in urban areas, especially Nairobi and Mombasa, Nakuru, Kisumu and Eldoret, in comparison to other places where probably even the mobile technology is not there. What needs to be done? Because we cannot speed up technology before we get there.
Yes, thank you very much for having me on the panel. The main thing that we should be talking about is equity in education. It's not even the marginalized. It's not even about urban and non-urban learners. Because some of the poorest learners we came to discover in our research, some of them are in urban areas. You visit some places here in Nairobi, places like some of the slum areas, for example. Even to get the school where you can get your child to enroll is a big problem. So it's not just about urban and non-urban. Sometimes it's about actually the equity, whereby you discover that the children, even some of them who are in urban areas, are not accessing some of these devices. But talk about technology in education. That is the way to go. Our funders, and I've said it on this panel many times, it's International Day of Education. Education in this world, and especially in Africa, is not just controlled by African governments. Many times our donors, the people who give us the money to run education, run our military, run our, even sponsor food. You hear we import a lot of food in this country. So what happens is that those people who donate or who give us the money also dictate terms in how the education should be done. And one of the dictations they're making to our governments is to make sure that our education system is digitalized. It is IT-based. Now, the problem is that penetration of those technology into all our areas becomes a problem. Because, for example, we saw during the COVID times, we wanted our country to have children in our schools to continue being taught even from home, such that teachers could still continue to engage the learners when they are in their homes during the COVID times. But what came up is that even our own universities, we're not talking just about primary school and high schools, even universities, it reached a place whereby University of Nairobi complained and said, we don't have those devices. Where we come from, there's no internet. So if the university education cannot access technology, cannot access IT in this time and age, then the question begs, what stops us from moving? And it all boils down to leadership and priorities.
Okay, because we saw the promise of free laptops for one laptop per child, and this was before the 2013 elections. Yeah. This is more than 10 years later, and that was never achieved. Some of these promises by politicians could bear a lot, especially in the weight they carry. For example, the promise of free primary education that we enjoy right now was made by a politician. He came in and implemented it. 10 years later, someone else made a promise of free laptops. That did not happen. And now should we wait again for another politician to make a promise?
And that, just to weigh in on that one also, politicizing our education is one of the biggest problems we have. Actually, those statements made by politicians like, free laptops, the problem was even not just where do you store the laptops, in our schools, where, you need to have digital labs, a place whereby you can charge those devices. We discovered that time when the politician was making the declaration, 80% of our primary schools did not have electricity. So it was discovered that if you don't have the power to power those devices, then how do you bring in technology? So technology comes also with challenges. And so when some of the politicians make these decisions or pronouncements on political platforms, they forget one thing. That you need more than just making the declaration. You need the infrastructure. Put up the labs for those devices. Put up the charging, the power the places, have generators or solar panels. So those are some of the issues that become the challenge.
Okay, but probably the solution would be policy, so that whatever populist statement a politician may make can be ring-fenced around some legal or policy framework to ensure that it's sustainable beyond a politician's political cycle. The person who made that promise for free laptops became president. He's no longer the president, right? 10 years later, what happens to that promise? From a policy perspective, how can we ensure that some of these promises or some of these major steps that we make in advancing our education system can actually last beyond a political cycle?
That's where the key stakeholders in education comes in, because they need to come on board and voice their concerns regarding this issue, for instance, where we cannot have equitable resources as far as technology is concerned. If there are policies that have been put in place, why are we not following them to the latter? So you find that at the end of the day, it still boils down to our leadership, you know, because
political leadership?
Yes.
I'm talking about the possibility of ensuring that it's not down to the political leaders, that it's actually left to the people who can last before beyond a political cycle.
I mean, the technocrats are there. There are people who are really trying so hard to really bridge that particular gap. But at the end of the day, they get overwhelmed because you cannot really have enough for everyone at the end of the day. So that's where equity comes in. But we still have to really push so hard to ensure that those who are supposed to do their role quite well. I believe that in as much as we have technocrats, the government is supposed to lead by example at the end of the day. So, yeah. Because
even the right to free and compulsory basic education is guaranteed by the Constitution, Article 53.
Yes.
But we are seeing, like now, there was another promise for free secondary education, whose progress is now appearing to slow down. Yeah. Probably there has been a few steps taken in a backward direction. And you wonder, fine, it may have been a political statement, but is there a way to ensure that once we progress on something, then it moves beyond the politics and it's protected probably by policy? That's my question.
Yeah, that is how it's supposed to be. In theory, actually, education, issues like health, issues like, you know, the issues that touch on the fundamental rights of human beings. Some of them are even enshrined in United Nations, you know, rights and charters.
Yeah.
But the problem we have is that we are a political country, political animal. Kenyans especially, we are political animals. I just want to give an example. Just the other day, we saw a school, people invaded a school, actually back in Kakamega, it's called Songo. And these people were not organized. You know, when I read in the media, they talk about its parents, essentially its leaders, political leaders. There must have been a political statement made somewhere that incited these people to move into that school and do what they did.
Yeah.
Now, if you were to think like a technocrat, these children in that school have got rights. Leave alone the teachers also. Even the children have a right to a teacher, right to education, right, you know, they have all these rights. They are enshrined in the Constitution. But somebody somewhere again makes a political statement and says, remove all the teachers from that school.
Yeah.
Let them go. So the children, again, now it begs another question. You've left these children exposed. Parents may have invaded the school. They may have done what they did. Of course, what they did was not right. But now, did somebody sit first to think about the right of the child in that school? So that you can't send away all the teachers and leave these children exposed. Okay. So already that alone is a political move. I've read in the media today that those teachers again have been returned back. Do you know why? Because now technocrats came in. Actually, I was among the people who said, you cannot deny those children the right to education by removing their teachers. So when we depoliticize, we have all these things in our constitution. It's in the United Nations Charter. It is in the basic rights of human beings. But our politics we first think like a politician. It's like when I was in school, I used to teach English, language I mean. I ask a child a question, and the child first thinks in mother tongue, you know, and then answers me, you know, first has thought in mother tongue. So the English gets broken, you know. So it's the same way as Kenyans. We first think as a political animal. What will my people say? How do I please the people who voted for me? Okay. And that is what is affecting policy when it comes to education.
Yeah.
All right. When we come back, we'll discuss that issue that you've brought about, that issue of mistreatment of teachers, mishandling and mistreatment of teachers, especially with regard to examination results, and what should happen. It also features on the dailies today. You're watching Morning Cafe, and you can be part of this conversation, even as we discuss matters education, today being the International Day of Education. You can be part of this conversation on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. Let's take a break now. of January 2024. On the front page of the Standard, there's one highlight, probably not as prominent as the rest, stuck in the right-hand corner. It talks about all 17 Isongo school teachers to return. The teacher's employer has rescinded its decision to transfer the tutors after meeting stakeholders of troubled secondary school and at its Nairobi offices yesterday. The story is what makes the bigger part of page 2 of the Standard. And we have a picture there of police officers and politicians, local politicians outside the gates of the Isongo Secondary School, where a week ago, parents and other members of the community invaded that school, attacking teachers and frog marching the head teacher of that institution in protest at what they termed as poor performance in the KCSE 2023 exam. It is what I want us to focus on with my panelists now, Brenda Akinyi, Education Policy Analyst, and Peter Amunga, Education Researcher with the Kenya Women Teachers Association. Just before the break, you were saying that it is wrong to actually remove all these teachers at a go like that. But before I come to you, Amunga, Brenda, there has to be a balance between protecting the rights of learners as well as ensuring that there is sufficient security for teachers as well, because teachers are deployed by the Teacher Service Commission and they do not get to choose where to work. Even as we say that, yes, the right of learners should come first, the security of teachers too should be paramount.
Most definitely. Yeah, this is a sad ordeal because I can't imagine what the teachers went through. I can't imagine what they felt when they were being accosted by these parents. Yes, these were aggrieved parties. I mean, emotions were so high, and I think they acted out of order because at the end of the day, you know, they ought to have followed the due process to look into what has actually made them produce the particular results. So attacking the teachers was quite typical, in my opinion. And it's sad because at the end of the day, when the teachers were withdrawn, or if the teachers are withdrawn, it's their children that are going to face quite much of difficulties. So teachers need to really be guarded, and they need to be well equipped and their security really ensured for them to be able to impart required knowledge and in the rightful manner. Yeah,
and we saw in some of these instances, because it is beyond even just what happened at Isongo, we've seen in other institutions where even the learners become part of these attacks against their teachers. They themselves attack the principal, some of the teachers, they frog match the teachers and mistreat them. Then we see the TSC withdraw the teachers, then return the same teachers to that same school. How possibly can they still hold the same position they had before, even in the eyes of their learners?
It is, you know, even matters security. It is the government, again, that's supposed to ensure the security in our schools, in our hospitals, actually in the whole country. The security docket, again, lies with the government. If people enter a school, for example, or even enter where we are sitting right now in this studio, we will first of all question the security agents around this institution around here. How did that, because it becomes now a security issue. The attack on Isongo by parents or even by students when they strike and, for example, they ban dormitories in schools, the first thing that arises is, where are the security agents in that area? The people who are supposed to be transferred and even punished or dealt with were security officers. Because the question begs, who was in charge of Isongo Secondary School that morning when Boda and other, in fact, I want to call them criminals, elements, entered the school? And it's not just that. We had schools in Narok. We have seen, even in the same newspaper you're talking about, there's still another school parents are complaining about. And now, this brings me to what I really wanted to say about this. And I was hoping that we will have a discussion also with some of the union officials. Because the union officials in Kakamega, Kupet, for example, they also camped at that school and demanded, actually they are the ones who demanded for the transfer of those teachers immediately.
You're questioning their decision to demand for that transfer?
That one, I really question it. Because this is called double standards. We have had teachers in this country undergoing more serious security threats than what happened at Isongo. We had teachers in northern Kenya. These teachers, some of them died in the line of duty, not just attacked by parents. They were attacked by terrorists. They died. And they came to Nairobi and camped at TSC headquarters demanding to be transferred. They camped, and it was their right also. But you know what? Instead of TSC transferring them, TSC actually disciplined them and even sacked them. It had again to be another issue. And so I'm saying, why does TSC apply double standards here? Why would a teacher in a bandit-prone area like, say, West Pokot?
The commission or the union?
I'm now talking about now the commission, and a little bit bring in also the union in that. The employer of teachers is the Teacher Service Commission. They are the ones who transferred the 17 teachers in Kakamega after unions also demanded that they be transferred. But the question now is, why would a whole commission apply double standards? And I think that's why they have rescinded on their decision, because they have been caught flat-footed. Because you transfer these 17, and yet there are teachers in northern Kenya who have been demanding for transfers because of security issues. We have teachers in West Pokot, in Turkana, in Baringo, in Kapedo, who have been every day camping at Teacher Service Commission asking, please transfer us because of security issues. So we have a problem in our country, my brother. And I want our listeners to also engage our leaders about this. Why do things happen in double? Why do we apply double standards? And finally, and now this one now to the unions. Do we have any regulator who regulates teachers? We no longer have what you used to hear, the inspectors of schools in schools. I am a teacher of many years, and I want to dare the Minister of Education on this show this morning. Many of our schools for the last 5 or so years have not been inspected. We've not even audited school accounts for many years right now. We are told that the ministry is overwhelmed, they don't have inspectors. Those people used to hear when you were growing up that inspectors are coming to school and you see everybody running around and making sure everything is right in school, is no longer happening in our schools. So when inspectorate department at the Ministry of Education fails its duty, when they are not inspecting the results, because we are just told this have 100% transition into schools, and nobody is there to ensure these children, are they sleeping right? Are they getting the right diet? Are they having enough teachers? 17 teachers for a school of 300-400 children is not even a good number. That's not even allowed. It's even criminal.
But if we could focus on that action of moving the teachers, transferring the teachers, which was taken by the TSC as demanded by COPET. And now we see that decision being rescinded. And back to my same question, how can a teacher who has been mistreated by parents and the communities and probably even by some of the learners still go back to the same classroom and proceed with the same commitment that was there before? Don't you think that is creating another problem? Brenda?
Psychologically, they already tampered with their well-being, because at the end of the day, you'll always fear for your own security. You don't know what is going to happen next because it has happened. So naturally, as a human being, you'll not perform your tasks as needed. And so it means that at the end of the day, the children are going to be on the receiving end. So I think TSC is supposed to really look into this and look for measures to curb these issues. But as much as this is concerned, because it has already happened, I think they ought to have really given these teachers some time off, or rather, maybe just transfer them to other schools. Because you cannot take me back to a place that is hostile. It's already proven that it's a hostile environment for me. So TSC is supposed to really come on board and speak quite well about this issue, and see to it that these particular teachers, before they even be taken back into the classroom to meet the same look at it, how do you think these children are even going to perceive these teachers? My father chased you out of the school. You're back here. Are you that desperate?
I can even threaten you.
Yes. I mean, what are you going to tell me? Yes. What are you going to tell me? My dad chased you the other day. We don't want you here, and you're back here. So it was a very bad example.
It's very bad.
So we've just created another problem by rescinding that decision and returning the same teachers to the same schools.
It's a very very big problem. It actually shows how indecisive we are, how insensitive the commission is. Because actually, if I was a teacher in that school and having been seen being frog marched in media stations, on social media, and then you tell me, you transfer me, you give me a letter of transfer, and then a few days later, you revoke the transfer and tell me to go back to that school. Actually, I'd rather even resign. I'll not even want to work there. I'd rather leave my job, because that is, first of all, being insensitive. If the Teacher Service Commission was actually sensitive, the first thing they should do is to even take those teachers through a course on trauma. Those teachers need to go through some kind of counseling. That was bad. What happened was bad. And you know what? It will remain imprinted in the minds of Kenyans, in media, because this thing will never go away. It will always be there. How do you think that principal will feel going back to that school? It's not right. It's wrong. And I will urge the unions, now that the teachers had transferred these teachers, let the unions go back and demand that transfer remains. Teacher Service Commission, if they really wanted to help this school, they would have gotten fresh teachers to go back there.
Okay. And we had invited Akelo Misori, the Secretary General of KUPPET, which is the union representing secondary school teachers. And he had confirmed his attendance, but as you can see, he's not here with us this morning. Let's talk about the role of unions, especially in protecting the teachers, who are the main workforce in this industry. The fact that KNUT has been accused of being, or rather, giving up so much of its power over the years. It used to be a very strong union back in the day, ensuring that the rights of teachers are guaranteed and are protected. Now we're seeing a very dimmed down KNUT. You're questioning the role of KUPPET in ensuring the security of teachers in places that are vulnerable in as far as security is concerned. What is the role of teachers' unions in this situation, and are they doing their job as they should?
They owe the teachers an explanation. Because if you are mandated or you're given a role to play and you're not doing it as it is, actually I don't know where the rain started beating them, because they used to be very vocal. These are people who would go on the streets and the government would, heed to their call. But I don't know what happened. They're now very quiet. They're seeing what is happening to their members, and they're doing absolutely probably zero, For it to come to a point where a teacher is accosted or is removed from a classroom, then it means that there's a problem. What saddens me is that we are not even looking at the main cause of this particular, how did they even come to reach to a point where a teacher is removed from a school? The glaring sight of the media and everything, I really felt so sad. It only shows that there are deeply rooted problems in that particular area that are not being addressed. Rather, we're looking at some teacher being removed from a classroom. There is a big problem. Maybe from the parents, what sort of awareness have been created there? What sort of learning process has been going on there? Maybe the teachers have not even had a very smooth sail throughout the year. For the results to come out that way, maybe it has been quite a very hostile environment. So I don't know why KNUT is quite
We're not even seeing anyone being taken to court.
Yes.
You get into a school, attack their videos, there's evidence, police are involved. Even the TSC, for the TSC to take action on such an issue, there must have been some evidence. Yet we are not seeing anyone being taken to court. We've left teachers vulnerable to any kind of attacks from any person.
And that is the sad part about it. And that's why I even believe Akelo Misori may not want to sit here this morning, because he knows we'll put this question straight to him. Because it's not just us. Actually, I am on several social media groups and WhatsApp groups of teachers. The whole of last night, Akelo Misori, the people at NAT and KUPPET have undergone fire, because baptism of fire. Because the questions they are being asked is, what role have you done or taken? Because for the teachers up to now, nobody has been arrested at Isongo. Not even one person. We know them. They are our village mates. They are people we know. Some of them are even suppliers in that school, who felt that they have not been paid their dues. There are people who can be seen. They are border riders. They are known. You see, the systematic failure of unions in this country is again because of politics. President Moi said, siasa mbaya, maisha mbaya. Siasa mzuri, maisha mzuri. What is going on is that our unions got politicized. When you started seeing union leaders looking for political positions, when you started seeing union leaders seeking to be accepted by political parties, even wearing political colors, you know, and starting to identify themselves with different political outfits. That is the day our unions lost it. And that's why, you know, when you asked what happened to NAT that used to be there, I was part of that NAT. I was working with Wilson Sossion. I was the communications director in Wilson Sosion's camp. I was the mobilizer of teachers in all camps. And Sossion, if he was ever to come to this show, he'll tell you some of the problems we underwent. First of all, when we went out full throttle to help teachers, what happened? Government played something called divide and rule. The government was able to cut our oxygen. Oxygen means union dues, you know, what is deducted from teachers.
There's an issue of money, definitely.
So the moment oxygen was cut off from unions, so other unions got frightened.
So are you saying that it's politicians,
it is politicians
who
now who control
manage to contain the unions?
So the unions are contained, they have subdued, they are actually down because they are waiting for their union dues every end of month. Okay. They wouldn't want to pop their heads up.
Nothing is forthcoming. Okay. Yet, curiously, yesterday, for the TSC to rescind this decision on transferring teachers from Isongo, it is politicians from that area who went to the TSC offices in Nairobi, apparently to render an apology, and the apology was accepted. As you can see, it would appear that we are not able to delink education from politics and politicians as it is. Is it possible to? Or is it an exercise in futility or a futile discussion on whether or not we can delink education from politics? Brenda?
It's quite hard to actually delink it from politics because one of the implementers are the politicians to see to it that education resources, for instance, reach every particular, you know, area of their own jurisdiction, for instance. But again, you know, it boils down to individuals' needs. Somehow, sometimes we are quite selfish because I'm not sure if this particular, for instance, teachers were actually, their thoughts were taken with regard, as far as this is concerned, you know, because if politicians are going to issue apology on behalf of the goons, as mentioned, yes, on behalf of these criminals, yet these particular criminals have not been brought to book. We want to see the same way they brought these teachers on the limelight with the cameras and you know, thrown all over the social media. We want to see them come on board also on social media and render apology, you know. I feel that they did it in public, they need to render the apology as well. These particular persons who went out of their way to dehumanize these teachers, they need to come on board and show to us in public that we are quite apologetic. We took this out of, you know, sheer anger, whatever, emotional turmoil and whatever it is. But again, why would we want to politicize something that is outrightly beyond us? Yeah. So I tend to think that our politicians need to really go a notch higher and try to alienate themselves from mere politics, mere use of words, and come into action and lead by example. You know, if this such a thing has happened, they need to come on board because at this particular point, and I don't think we are nearing any elections anytime soon, so we don't need to, you know, we don't need some beautiful flowery sort of use of words to try and win our hearts. We need action.
But the question now is that when performance in examinations, because it is a great concern to the community, when performance in education is poor, who should take the blame? Because probably that's where the question is. and people have decided it is a teacher.
Yes, that is it. And yesterday at the Kenya Women Teachers Association, they gave out their report and their CEO said that parents are passing the buck to teachers. It is not the role of only teachers in good results, success in schools. Actually, even those politicians that are, some of them inciting and being part of this, have a big role to play because we have got something called nowadays CDF. We're asking, can we depoliticize education? One of the reasons why we can't is because we are given bursaries. You know, we are told
it's
education.
Systemic now.
Yes,
they are part of this.
Yes, we are told that education is free, but again at the same time we are told we have bursaries coming in through the same politicians. You know, you have to go to line up in their offices. Actually, I happen to be on the bursaries committee in Nairobi County. You have to go to, you know, Nairobi County gives out almost 1 billion shillings in terms of bursaries to students. You go to the MP, the Member of Parliament has got bursaries. The woman rep in Kakamega has got, bursaries to give. You go even to the MCA in that area. So it goes down all those political levels. You even listen, sometimes the president talks about also sponsoring some students. So it is almost everybody in politics is having a role to play.
And they therefore feel they are right.
They have a right, they have something. Because like now, this politics gives them the right. So the only issue now is, when things go wrong, they now look for a scapegoat. And the scapegoat becomes the teacher. And because teachers are many times vulnerable, they are the ones who spend a lot of time with these children, they end up now bearing the brunt of all these failures that happen in schools. But the truth of the matter is, and we want our parents to hear this, education, and we used to tell our children, 75% of good results and everything comes from the child and the background of this child. Things like water. If you cannot be able to provide even just water for that child to shower, to brush his or her teeth, and to do all this kind of thing, already this child is not going to do well. If this child is not having a balanced diet back at home, I was in this studio when somebody talked about diet. If this child is not getting some protein, some starch, some carbohydrates, some oils in his or her body, this child cannot perform. And other things like quality education, and I've said it before, is hinged on 3 things. Quality tools. Tools here talking about the classrooms, talking about the sanitation in that school, talking about all these things. These quality tools are important. Then the next thing again is quality environment. Environment, like when we saw people enter a school and attack, they had spoiled the learning environment. And finally, quality, well-paid teachers. If you don't pay your teachers, if you have got interns on the road who are claiming we are still interns 17 months since we were employed, we are being paid little money, don't expect results. Results don't come just from the moon like manna to fall on us. Good results are planned. And I want to finish by saying this. Education in this country started through faith-based institutions. We, as people who are doing research in education, we are now also talking about, let us even give back some of our schools back to some of those faith-based institutions.
Take them away from the government?
Take them away even from the government. Because why we are talking about that, we have, for example, at this school we are talking about, St. Gabriel's Isongo. It's a Catholic-run school. Actually, the Catholics are now demanding that they want their schools back, because they are saying, we gave these schools to government to run for us. Government has politicized these schools. Government is not ensuring there is inspection in those schools. And that is why we are having some of these problems.
Okay.
I finish by saying, parents, there is no inspection going on in our schools from government for the last 3 years. Since COVID, no inspector of schools has entered any school. I dare the Minister of Education to show us. And once that is not being done, forget good results.
Brenda, your assessment on this issue of who is to blame when it comes to performance of schools?
Yeah. Let me just take you back a little bit. Today's theme for International Day of Education is learning for lasting peace. So it's come to everyone's attention that peace is quite a fundamental right to children for the betterment of their future, for them to be able to learn properly. So when it comes to the issue to do with results, it's a collective responsibility from the parents, from the society, the teachers, there's the board of management of that particular school or institution to see to it that students or children, get the needful knowledge to be able to pass exams. So we cannot basically just lay or rather point fingers at one particular body, that is the teachers, of which, like I said, I mean, this is just some bit of surface view of the problems that this particular area is facing, because you cannot just wake up one day and behave the way you behave. This is part of you.
Okay.
It's actually you. So it's just coming out at the rightful time. So when it comes to performance of a particular school, it's not just the teachers, it's a collective responsibility. So the society, the community is supposed to look into their own wardrobes and see, are we really up to the task?
Okay.
Yeah.
And looking at the dailies yesterday, now as we move on from this issue of mistreatment of teachers, and we look at now results, because there has to be results at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And now we're transitioning to CBC, and the issue of KPSEA results, which were released, I think, sometime last week,
Yes.
way after the students, the learners had already transitioned to grade 7. Now we're already seeing some teachers and parents demanding that the grading system in CBC, that's a KPSEA assessment, be changed, because they don't understand it. They still want to see how did my child perform vis-a-vis the other child. And you see, it could be a societal problem, because even as we transition into a new system where we're trying to get rid of some of the failures of the 844, which was grading and ranking of schools, even teachers and parents are still demanding that the new system puts into account those aspects as well.
Yes. You see, how CBC works is that we don't rank in terms of marks and what one got A or B. Actually, the first thing is we rank using something called expectations. Above expectation, exceeding expectation, below expectation, severely below, you know. So that's how it's ranked. So this result that came out, of course, what came out was not even individual results. It was actually more of the school the child learns in. So, for example, if your child is in a school like, say, Nairobi Primary, the result came out for Nairobi Primary and said it is above average or below average or average.
The school.
The school, not the child. And it is the teacher who is supposed now to analyze every individual. We are no longer calling them teachers, we are calling them facilitators. So these facilitators or teachers, they will look at this child and see how they are below expectation or exceeding expectation. So this kind of thing is becoming a problem to parents. And you are right, it's a societal thing. Our parents were not inducted enough. Not only parents, even we teachers, we were not inducted. Even media was not inducted properly. And that's where, again, we lost it here. In implementation of this CBC program, we need to bring in everybody. We need to do a lot of civil education. It's like when we are about to have an election, you see civil education going on, people being sensitized, that starting such and such a year, you will not be seeing results. You will be seeing something called below expectation, above expectation for your child. And CBC is not about ranking. They have told us as government, and I think also the people want this system implemented, and they have done it rightly so, told us that this is not about exams and results. That's why you saw, even when they were reading out the results for KCPE or KCSE, they did not rank schools. They left it for us to rank out of, the ministry did not want. Because they're trying to cut out this bottleneck competition between schools, which also brings in a lot of competition and corruption and all these kind of things. So this new system was supposed to eradicate that. The only problem is this. It is vague. The truth of the matter is that if you give somebody, everybody must go through something called tests and measures. Even in the Bible, we read things about the first shall be the last. These kind of words come out in scriptures, in the Holy Scriptures.
So you still feel that that kind of grading and ranking is still important
everywhere in the world. There has to be always number one, and there has always to be number last. There is no way all of us can be just one thing, that we are all above expectation or we are below expectation. That is a lie. It doesn't happen in real life.
But Brenda, we're trying to transition into a new system. Yet you can see the teachers and those people who are supposed to run this new system are still stuck in the old ways.
Transition or the change is inevitable, but again, I think somehow we're also taking way too long to transit and to accept the reality that we have a cohort that has gone through the CBC system, so the system is there to stay. So this is, as he has mentioned, that the constant education, constant creation of awareness of what these particular terms basically mean. When your child comes home with below expectation, what does it mean? Is it equivalent to a child who is for instance, last in a class, or what does it basically mean? It
would be easier if you just told it it's an E.
Then you know it's a fail.
I tend to think at the end of the day, let's try to embrace and seek information. Let's try to ask, because it's available. This particular information on what these particular terms mean, it's quite available. Now, the issue of equity still, brings us back to this grading system. We do not want, the government did not want the idea of a child, for instance, in Kenya High School is perceived to be better than a child on Songo Primary School, somewhere in Kajiado County or something. So CBC is trying to really mold and bring people together, bring students together, bring parents' emotions, stabilize them, so that we don't see the things that we saw, like whatever happened in this particular school. I don't believe that by the time the junior high schoolers are doing exams, we're going to have parents also on the roads.
There are no exams?
Yes.
That's the concern, because the teachers want exams.
No. There will be assessments.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Basically, traditionally, we call it exams, but there is an assessment.
Because you can tell the teachers are still insistent. And you see they've created a business around it, that if schools are ranked, then it's more attractive to go to a better ranked school. Getting rid of that is a problem, because there are businesses that are established on this ranking and grading system. Teachers themselves have started their own private schools that they run. And without the grading and ranking, there is a problem.
That's true.
Is that why teachers are concerned? And because wouldn't it be defeating the purpose of transitioning to a new system, which is already too costly for us?
The truth of the matter is that, that's not really the reasoning behind teachers, that because of the business, really. But life is not about being average or just below average. No, life is about competition. Life, Charles Darwin, in his theory called evolution, said it's the survival for the fittest, There has to be something that survives. There has to be something that comes out and looks like it has won. There has to be a race. Life is about race. It's about starting and finishing. There has to be that kind of thing.
But doesn't that defeat the purpose? Because there was already a lot of disparity between schools that have resources and those that don't.
And that is
education is supposed to be an equalizer.
We, as educationists, we are looking at it like this. When government discovered they can't deal with exam cheating, they can't deal with corruption in the management of exams, they can't deal with competition in schools that is bringing out this problem, they can't deal with equity in education, they decided to come up with an escapist method, which is called, let us make all of them the same. Let's just say it is above average or below average. Now, that is an escapist way. It's a way just to make things, let us move on. Now, it is wrong. I am telling you, even CBC in developed countries like Finland, actually CBC is the best done in Finland. There is ranking, there is measurement, tests and measurement. Yes, assessments are good. We even used to have in colleges something called CATs, continuous assessment tests. They are good and they'll appear maybe in your transcript. But you see, this one is now not coming out the same way we used to have the CATs. This one just comes out that your child is below expectation. Now, for example, when this studio wants to employ a good journalist, will they look at the rank of him as having been below expectation? They'll want something. What really does this person bring to this organization? And so we as teachers feel, yes, CBC is a good thing, but our thinkers, the people who are thinking it out, are trying to escape some responsibility. Let us do things just general. Let us do things generally, then move ahead and survive and go ahead. It is not right.
Are you not concerned that, or are you concerned that the teachers who are supposed to help us transition into this CBC are thinking this way? That they're keen to take us back to the ranking system, which we are really keen on leaving. Because so what's the point of even talking about CBC? It's already cumbersome enough for the parents.
Okay, so I tend to think they're quite contradictory, because at the end of the day, you cry out that there's no equity. The schools that don't perform well, they've always been on the receiving end. So now when the government is trying to enact or come up with policies or come up with ways with which it can be able to regulate some of your concerns, and one of the ways is the issue of not basically ranking in terms of numbers. There is ranking in CBC. There is ranking. When a child, because you have an expectation as an education stakeholder, as a teacher, you have an expectation. You expect that this child should be able to read, probably, improve his or her literacy skills at a particular point in time. So when at that particular point in time, this particular student is not able to meet your expectation, then the child is below expectation. Then you'll give recommendations. What is this particular student supposed to be done so that he or she improves? Now, we have exceeding expectation, which is equivalent to an A. So each particular, for instance, subject is, I think, graded in a way that it's not you are number 1, you are number 2, and you are number 3. It's about the expectation.
So are we seeing a situation where, yeah, fine, we'll go back to A, B, C, D, so that exceeding expectation, which is excellence, will be A? And we'll just go back to the grading.
Not really.
Actually, say,
I'm just
meeting expectation will be a B and the other C, D.
I'm just trying to compare the two, because we have been cultured the ABC, or rather we've been cultured the numbering way throughout our lives. So we're having something new. So we are transiting into a new system. So we have to make reference to the initial grading system so that we understand what do these expectations mean. So at the end of the day, I think
we will go back. We will go back to the ranking. And not just about going back to the ranking. Somebody will want to measure, even we as teachers, did you also meet the expectation as a teacher? Yes. How do we know that you met the expectation if we don't really look at your ranking? How did, say, Mukumu girls meet the expectation and Isongo did not meet the expectation?
Probably it's just an issue of communication that what parents are wondering is, yes, you've done the assessment, but how do I, as a parent, know that my child is actually doing well? Or do you tell me expectations I may not really understand? Is it an issue of communication that probably
yes,
if it's broken down, they may get to understand it better?
Yes, it is an issue of communication. And for instance, it's not like the students are not being given actual numbering in terms of scores. It's not like if you score 100%, it will not be scripted down that you scored 100. It will be scripted. What will not be scripted down is, yes, you scored 100%, but you're not position 1. You've exceeded expectation. But again, you still scored what? 100. So you as a parent, you should be able to see that my child scored 20% out of 100 or 20 out of 100, which is most definitely below expectation. You as a parent, you have an expectation, yeah? At the end of the day, as you take your child to school, there is an expectation in a particular area or skill. So if your child is not able to give back with equal measure to your expectation, then he or she is below expectation. So I don't know where for me, I'm not trying to go against what teachers are thinking or what whoever is thinking about as far as the CBC is concerned. I am trying to embrace it. I mean, we have our children already in this particular system. So I'm just trying to incorporate myself and understand this whole system or this whole curriculum. Is it something that we can embrace and think positively about it? Or
primary schools at the end of this year will have no KCPE. Yes. They must be worried about what will they tell their communities that we did this year. That issue of communication, probably that's what needs to be improved. Right. That how do you explain to the community that this was how our learners performed this year? Probably that is what we should be talking about. Yes,
that is actually the fact. Actually, when you look at it very holistically, is what you're talking about. CBC is about a team play. That's why the results when they came out as a school has exceeded expectation or is below or is average. Because most of the activities, now CBC is about activities. When you look at their books, I've been trying to look at their books many times, it's about in class, the kids are given activities to do. It's not just learning now. They are involved. For example, they'll go and sweep a market or open the sewage somewhere. And so they are judged as a class, did they sweep the market well, So you can't give one child. It is all the children. They may sing a song. They are supposed to do some performing arts, maybe do a drama play as a class. So the marking system or the grading system is such that you look at their play as a school, for example. Did they perform well? So we need to communicate to our parents that this is, and I said it on this show one time, CBC is not about what we used to teach, the traditional way of teaching, where a teacher comes in front and lectures the child on way forward or what's supposed to be done, how to pass exams and all that. No. This is like what I said is like football. I gave a very simplistic example here. That is like a football team, like the team we are watching in the Africa Cup of Nations. You look at the Senegalese team. So that team must work together. The goalkeeper, the strikers, the defense, the midfield must all collaborate properly to deliver a win. And that win is not about one individual. It's not about Mohamed Salah. It's about the whole Egyptian team. So when they celebrate as Egypt, they have won, or Arsenal has won this game. So you're not talking about just the person who scored. You're talking about the entire team. So CBC, the teacher becomes a coach. The way you see a coach in Harambee Stars, he sits behind, he's not in front, and he's able to distribute each player, which can play in a goalkeeper, which one will be the midfielder, which one will be. And so the work of a teacher now is to coach this team to succeed. So that is where the government has failed to explain properly to parents that we are leaving the system of individualistic, one person succeeding in a school getting an A and everybody else getting an E. Government wants now the whole class to move as a unit together and the teacher to be judged as a coach of the team. The teacher to be judged like, you have made this team succeed. And then depending on whichever activities they are being given, if it is an activity in music, if it's an activity in a pre-technical subject like maybe woodwork or metal work, then it will be seen that for example, Sigalagala High School is doing very well in woodwork. So they have exceeded expectations. Okay. So it's all of them now coming together. I think that's how it's supposed to be explained.
Okay. All right. Let's take a look at another aspect of education that has been on the headlines this week, and that's the 100% transition to secondary school. As at yesterday or the day before, it was in the headlines that out of the 1.4 million who sat for KCPE last year, many of them have joined secondary schools, but at least 280,000 of those learners cannot be traced and are yet to join secondary schools. It is a huge percentage. It may seem like a small number, but that's about almost 17%. That's a big number. And when we look at the status of education in Kenya and having the right to education enshrined in our constitution, definitely questions will be asked. What is the main problem? Is it just an issue of funding? But what is the main issue that has seen us not manage 100% transition? Brenda.
Yeah. So that's one of the milestones that the government has made to be able to ensure that every child is, transiting directly to high school. Yeah. So if we have this particular percentage that has not, or rather is not, cannot be traced, no one knows where they are or where they've disappeared to. There are other issues that have really brought such an issue on board because we have issues to do with, for instance, poverty. We have issues to do with early pregnancies or early marriages in young girls. So it really brings us down to doing research and knowing why has this particular percentage not fully transited into high school? What is the main issue? But again, for instance, if it's an issue to do with early pregnancies, these are issues that can be curbed away from the societal levels or community levels, where we can be able to have community-based awareness to the young girls or give second chance to the young mothers to education, so that it doesn't really basically feel like once you've really not been able to make it to high school because of 1 or 2, 3 reasons, you still have or rather you still stand a chance. Yeah. Because
if they miss this chance to join high school, remember now we're getting to the tail end of the 844 system. That will be an issue. What do you think is the main problem?
The problem is not funding. The problem is not even, the problem is actually the fact that it's not possible. 100% transition is not possible. It's not been done anywhere. The word 100% alone, it means perfection. Nothing is perfect. No system can just be 100% perfect. There are many other factors that come into play. One of the biggest factors is there are not enough schools to accommodate all these children. So when they tell us that 100% of children in our primary schools will move to the secondary school, that's not possible. Because first of all, it's not enough.
A fifth, isn't that too big? 20% is too huge a number.
It's a huge number, yes. And it's a huge number because actually that is the gap between primary schools in this country and secondary school. Because the congestion in many of our schools, in Nairobi, I saw a feature, somebody doing a feature at a school just here in Nairobi, one of our girls' schools. The girls are sleeping, they have put up now prefabs, they have put up tents because classrooms have been turned into dormitories. So for the children to learn, they're learning in tents and some of them are learning under trees because it's not possible. The number of teachers taking care of those children is not there. So many parents will look at it, many children will look at it and may not want to join that kind of school. So already that's a problem, that congestion in schools is a big problem, sending them away or keeping them away from school. The other point, again, that's another issue and very major issue, is the fact that we are, as a government, don't tell people or the world the truth about our education system. Many of our learners feel, many of these children who are in these schools feel that even pursuing education sometimes doesn't pay. The song that you used to hear, so many vijana, mwisho wa masomo, utapata kazi mzuri sana, is no longer there. That we need to tell each other the truth. And children know it. These children we have today know clearly that education is not ufungua maisha, the way you used to have school mottos. Some of them would rather look for a pikipiki or a boda for that matter and get into some business, mutumba business. They feel, and even their parents know that. They say, why should I spend on you? It is 70,000 a year in a boarding school, or 50,000 times 4 years, that is around 300,000, 250,000. Why can't I use that money to buy you something else to do? And so many of our children are dropping out because they feel there is no hope in education. Actually, many of, once they finish school, they're not getting the jobs that you used to talk about. There has to be an incentive. There has to be a stick and a carrot that you tell them, go to school because this will happen. But now they can see with their eyes, you don't need to go to school. In fact, some of the richest people we have, some of the people who command our politics properly, some of the people who win to become governors and MCS in this country, some of them never went beyond class 6, class 7. So why should I really bother to be in a school for 4 years to get education?
It's a very worrying assessment, Brenda, that a fifth of our learners could fail to join high school, especially due to probably lack of space. Because if I may remember, the headline said that the 280,000 had not been placed in different secondary schools. That in itself is an issue of funding. We cannot ignore the issue of resources when it comes to education. It is a very expensive venture.
Yeah. Them not being placed in itself is already a problem, because if you cannot be able to place a particular student in a particular school, then it means that maybe you don't have the required resources. For instance, you don't have the space.
Are we promising too much that we can't deliver from the government's perspective?
Yes, that's it. So the government really needs to come on board and curb this particular problem, because if we don't have space, we don't have schools, then why are we really initiating measures that are supporting education? Why then do we preach equity? Why then do we preach sustainable development goals? Why are we really trying to really push these particular narratives, yet in real sense things are quite different in the ground? So if we have a particular number that cannot be traced because we did not place them where they belong, or we did not place them, or we did not run with our narrative of 100% transition, then we are to blame. So we really need to trace them and find somewhere to put them. Yes.
But the issue of funding we cannot ignore, because head teachers are complaining. And they're saying we need per child capitation of 30,000 shillings. Initially it was 22,000. And now the government says we can't even match that 22,000. Actually, we can only afford about 15,000.
16,000.
Yes. What does that portend for education sector?
What it portends is that that's why you are seeing wastage. That's why we are seeing children not going to school. That's why we are seeing that children cannot report to some of those schools. And you look at any channel and all these newspapers and media houses, they are talking about children who have not reported to school because they have no school fees. Every day nowadays, you go to your TV station or listen to radio. Sorry, the first thing you'll read or hear is that such and such a child passed very highly but has not reported because they have no fees, no money to report those schools. We have seen instances of high school principals receiving children who come to school with just a box or with nothing, just a letter, invitation letter. And that principal is told, now admit this child. So what's happening is this: without proper resources and funding, we cannot have quality education. We cannot talk about 100% transition. It's a mirage. It's a dream that cannot come true, because you can only talk about that when you have the money. These developed nations, talk about Japan, talk about China, talk about Britain, USA. Yes, they have the 100% because they have the resources. So, you know, it's like cutting your coat. Somebody used to say, cut your coat according to your, is it material? Size. A size, you know. You don't just go and chew more than you can swallow. Mm-hmm. You must have prepared. So many times in our country, and we started by saying this, we make political statements to please the masses, to make them vote for us. 100% transition was a political statement. And we as teachers, even the teachers, the issue we talked about, bad results in some of these schools, and the many E's that we are getting in this country is because of 100% transition. Some of these children are not interested to go to high school. Mm-hmm. They can do better things elsewhere.
Okay.
And because of that, they go to school, they are forced to stay there, they come out with nothing.
But we still believe that education is key to the progression of this society. Do you think that, and this is a very controversial proposal, that now that we're in the age of universal health coverage, universal health care, affordable housing, and the kind of models that this government has adopted in as far as funding those kind of projects, that probably education would have benefited a lot from an education fund, probably, that if at all we are squeezing the taxpayers further, that probably it should be towards funding some things like education. Do you think that that kind of approach would work better in trying to ensure that there's a 100% transition?
Okay, because first and foremost, it's the common mwananchi's pocket that is digging deeper. You know?
Either way, the parents will still have to pay if at all the government is not paying.
So you're trying to bring the balance between what if we went the education? What if we just funded education rather than funding some housing somewhere? That makes a lot of sense.
Or even alongside funding the housing, why don't we also
go ahead and do
that? It is the way forward.
Yeah, most definitely that makes a lot of sense, and we should start thinking in that direction. But again, we always do budgetary allocation every particular year. So, and the government is supposed to try and see the particular percentage we are allocating to education. Is it really worth it? Is it enough? Or how best can we be able to increase the percentage and reduce certain, maybe reduce their own personal fundings, maybe. Because I don't want to go to that particular direction where I'm told that, part of your tax again goes to, because it's supposed to give, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to education, these are very key things in the right, in a person's right to life, for instance, right to well-being. Yeah. So if we want a society that has enabled mindset, then the government really has to come on board and tell us that we have increased the percentage of funding as far as education is concerned before they come on board and tell us we need you to go deeper into your pockets.
But that kind of social welfare approach to education probably would work better, because we've seen areas where, and you are drawing comparisons with where CBC has really worked well, that probably taxation in those countries is very high, but then education is free, healthcare is free, housing is probably highly subsidized or almost free, transportation is. If at all we are going the taxation way, could education benefit? Then the government guarantees us free education for all, and just include it in the taxation,
It's the reason why it cannot happen in education in this country, to have that kind of taxing our way to making education free, is accountability. Our biggest problem is education has results. It's seen. The results in education. It is possible to quantify and to measure the levels and everything of literacy and education, how the standards are. Now, it's not very possible, and timelines may not be there to talk about, for example, you cannot judge a doctor by how many patients died, in his hospital, in his, that kind of thing. But in a school, in education system, we are able to account. And many of our leaders, political leaders in this country, run away from that thing called accountability. That's why nobody's coming up with what we're seeing right now in the health sector, SHIF, that we will be funding it 2.7% of our salaries tax to go there. Because if they said the same for education, that everybody will pay a certain tax for education, the problem will be accounting for it. Because people will want to see the results. For housing, you can see even when you listen to everybody talk about it, they're saying, where are the structures? How are we going to account for it? Those are that's the elephant in the room. But in education, the structures are already there. The teachers are there. The schools are there. We want to see, if we are taxing us for that money, what are you doing in our schools? Can we see it? Because it will have to be seen, and that's where we are running away from. But it is the best way. If we are going the way of health through taxing, if you're going housing through taxing, then it's not just a radical, it's actually the best thing to do, that we also talk to Kenyans and tell them, we will tax you.
Okay. Final parting shot, 30 seconds.
Yes, our parting shot again is the International Day of Education. Education is key in life. Despite the many challenges that we are going through, I want to tell Kenyans that as a country, we had made a lot of efforts to make sure that our education is quality. We are ranked some of the best in the world. Our teachers, we have so many trained teachers who are able to teach. We only can say this. This day is important to us. It only needs for us to reflect more on what we can do to make our systems work better for us.
Thank you. Brenda?
Yes, I would say that knowledge is the currency of peace. And so we need to invest quite a lot in our education system, and we need to see to it that we are able to equip the children of this country with the much needed knowledge, with the much needed resources to see a better tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Brenda Akinyi, Education Policy Analyst, and Peter Amunga, Education Researcher with GOtv, as we mark International Day of Education. And now straight to the editorial comment still on this matter. The International Day of Education serves as a reminder of the critical role of education and teachers play in shaping the future of societies worldwide. This year's focus on countering hate speech underscores the alarming rise of divisive rhetoric, discrimination, and violence that has permeated our global landscape. In Kenya, these educators, entrusted with molding the minds of the next generation, find themselves in increasing dire circumstances. The demands on teachers have never been higher, particularly as Kenya undergoes a significant educational transition from the 844 system to the competency-based curriculum CBC. This pivotal role, combined with the responsibility of ensuring a smooth 100% transition from primary to secondary schools, places an immense burden on teachers. It is disheartening to note that despite their pivotal role, teachers in Kenya are confronted with violence, intimidation, and poor working conditions. Recent incidents of teachers being attacked in their workplaces by irate parents and students cast a dark shadow over the noble profession. This mistreatment not only undermines the dignity of the teaching profession, but also erodes the morale and dedication of those who have chosen to contribute to the betterment of society. Furthermore, the struggles faced by intern teachers in their quest for better contracts highlight systemic issues within the education sector. As we commemorate the